You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 32, on the SojuTalk Nation podcast feed. I'm your host, Crispy, also known as Crispy Wonton, or simply just Anton, and on today's episode, all the way from the Netherlands and older sister of the saddest sad boy moderator on the SojuTalk server, Wolf, we've got Soapie. She joins the show to discuss her origins in K-pop, SojuTalk, and making friends on the server. It was nice going into kind of a time capsule of mid-2010s K-pop. It is starting to feel weird that it is a bit retro, but as Soapie and I talked about groups from that era, it really did feel like a lifetime ago. We also went into some nerd talk, discussing anime and many other titles, and ended on the amazing career of director Denis Villeneuve and his epic science fiction fantasy modern classic, Dune. Coming up, my chat with Soapie on the Soju Sessions. Joining Soju Sessions today, we've got a sibling, a sister of one, the saddest mod, the saddest sad boy in the world, Wolf, all the way from the Netherlands, in college, learning, being a successful human being. We've got Soapie. Welcome to the show, Soapie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. I do appreciate you coming on. We have your brother. We had your brother on a few weeks ago, and he, got really in his feelings. He was really insightful and opened up a lot about just his past and his history growing up with you as a sibling, as an older sister, and you were kind of his guiding star in a lot of areas of his life. And I really wanted to have you on the show to illuminate a lot of your experiences and your points of view of how it all went down. But of course, from the perspective of K-pop and what brings us here today. So, Soapie, let's get your origin story. How did you find K-pop? And how did you find communities as you were growing up to kind of share this fandom and this love for this genre of music?
Okay, well, I got into K-pop many years ago, actually, like since I think 2014. I was checking yesterday, and it all started when I was on YouTube, and I randomly stumbled upon this music video by a very small group. I don't think you guys know them, like EXO, they're kind of low key. But at the time, they released Growl in 2013, and I was very confused and intrigued by all the NSYNC dancing. Like I was like, what's going on? And I just had to watch more. And I think around that same time, I think February, BTS had just released Boy in Love. And before I knew it, I was falling down this rabbit hole of binge watching music videos from like groups at the time were like what Super Junior, Girls' Generation, 21, Big Bang were really big, Sistar, VAP, and it just that's kind of how it started. Just
Uh,
me, random Aruban girl finding K-pop on the internet, I guess.
so what was that like, just being in Aruba, being in an island country, with a very specific culture, specific type of people in your community, and then being introduced to this very global, very Eastern Asian form of entertainment. And you just named off a bunch of like amazing artists that are so well known over the 2010s, but all in a very eclectic sounding style, right? There's not one that I can say is like, oh, this is like the Soapie style. It's like you said EXO, you said Sistar, you said Big Bang, you said 21, you said Girls' Generation. The genres are so mixed. What was that like being introduced to such a big world, being an island girl yourself?
Um, it was a lot. It was like nothing that I really grew up around. So I was confused, but because it was so confusing, I think it intrigued me even more. I did grow up watching Naruto on Cartoon Network in Spanish, which is very odd. But I didn't understand that it was an anime at the time. I just thought it was like animation and that it was always in Spanish. And So when I got older, I think back in 2014, I was already kind of dabbling in anime when this kind of happened. So I guess it kind of went hand in hand with me finding K-pop, but it wasn't really accepted amongst my peers, or my family didn't really get it at the time because it's so different. Like, it's completely different language. We didn't have a lot of Koreans. We still don't have a lot of Koreans on the island, so it wasn't really a language I had been exposed to. And this idea of like groups that are so coordinated and that have, specific members for specific things, and how they did everything, was very odd, I feel like. But since I am from an island that's so culturally diverse, it wasn't that weird either to like listen to foreign music. And I liked the way it sounded, which was really hard to explain to people. Like, oh, why do you listen to Korean music? Like, you can't understand it. And I'm like, I like I like the way that it sounds in my ear. Like, I didn't know how to explain that to people. So yeah, people didn't really take it very well the first few years, but you know.
Could you go into more detail about kind of the pushback you received from your immediate circle of friends and family when they first found out that you listened to K-pop and watched anime?
Um, yeah, it with my family, it took a bit for them to kind of understand where I was coming from, because obviously it was hard for people to grasp the idea that you could watch something that wasn't in a language that you predominantly understand. Especially with anime, they didn't understand why I was watching something that was animated, because they thought, oh, it's like a kids show or something like that. But anime is like not that at all. I think I got more pushback from people at school than my family, because they just kind of didn't care. Some family members would kind of make fun of me, and like kind of call me like racial slurs and stuff like that, in the sense of like calling me Asian slurs, because they thought that would be like, haha, like funny. She likes Asian stuff, so she's trying to be Asian now. And in school, I got that a lot, because like they didn't understand, and they didn't really try either. But when they realized that I didn't care and that I didn't give a fuck, they kind of stopped. And now all of them watch anime, so I think that's funny. Um, yeah, the thing is, I just decided to get everyone around me into K-pop and anime. So all of my immediate friends and the friends that I've had the longest have come to be K-pop stans as well, and anime enjoyers, because I have that effect on people apparently. Um, but yeah, it wasn't very fun to be told that you're weird for liking something that isn't, I guess, common or known on the island yet.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very like universal story of growing up and trying to fit in, right, and trying to find your way in the world. Because I do feel like when a new culture or something that's very different is introduced, there's resistance, but it does sound like you. Well, from just knowing you over the past 2 years now, it's been 2 years, right?
Oh my god,
Almost been
it's
2 years.
almost been it's like 2 years.
Yeah, you have a very strong resolve. Like you're very strong in your convictions, and I wouldn't say forceful, but you're confident in how you express things in a way where people can't help but just to resign to the idea that perhaps you're right. And in this case, it's kind of cool that you kind of sticking by your guns and saying like, this is what I like, and if you're gonna be part of my life, you're going to experience it too, to the point that not all your friends are K-pop and anime fans, which I think again is a testament to just who you are as a quality human being. So very cool.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
I think like it's a bit odd though, because I wouldn't say that I'm a confident person at all, or that I come off that way, but everyone around me has always said that I am. So I guess I am. It's just I struggle with that. But like you said, like my friends, I got to convince them, and not to like say that my family didn't come around, because my parents did within like the year of finding out that I like this kind of stuff. My dad immediately like started looking into it as well, and he actually fell in love with making Asian cuisine, specifically ramen. He like has been mastering ramen for the past like how many years have I been? How long has it been since 2014? I don't even know.
7 years.
Yeah, so it's been a while,
Wow.
and they since then they've just become completely accepting of it. Like every time any K-pop artist or anything anime comes up on TV, they call me, or if they know K-pop artists are coming to the U.S., they're like, "Hey, do you want to go?" and stuff like that. Not like we can, like I can afford to go, but it's a thought, right? That they're like, "Hey, BTS are going to California. Like you should look at prices and stuff." So they've all come around, and I've gotten my cousins into K-pop as well, and they tolerate me playing K-pop and stuff. They even like a few songs. Like I had some of my cousins hooked on BTS and surprisingly VIX for a while. Like they really liked VIX. So I'm very grateful that my family didn't some of them still don't like it. They still kind of make jabs at me, but since I don't care, it doesn't matter.
You did a nice job to normalize K-pop and
Yeah.
what East Southeast Asian Eastern Asian culture, Eastern Asian music from Korea essentially. Because I was gonna say Japan and lump it all together, but it's all very different. But you've normalized it to the point where it's celebrated in a very quiet way, right? Where it's not this very like outspoken like, oh, like we all love K-pop. It's the small thought and small messages of, hey, like I heard BTS is coming to our area. Like, is that something you're interested in? I feel like those are
Yeah.
small victories in the sense of kind of this global engagement and global like unity, right? I know that sounds like super cheesy, but we all kind of come together over time, right? I think you do a really nice job of of expressing that and like bringing people together. BTS is a very big group, as well as a lot of the other groups that you named, whether that was EXO, 21, Big Bang, Sistar. I'm just repeating it. But let me ask you, who are some of your favorite K-pop groups that helped kind of bridge that gap for you from 2014 and on, and that you slowly kind of introduced to your inner circle of friends and family?
Okay. I mean, one of the first groups that I actually watched aside from EXO was Shiny. So Shiny was a big influence on like my on everything really. Shiny. I watched Ring Ding Dong, which was like which is such a bad first song, but it's
But
so
it's so
good, but it's so
iconic,
bad.
right? Like
It's
everyone
so
knows the
iconic.
song and music video.
So Shiny, Big Bang, 21 were like really big groups for me. Um, and then and when I got into K-pop, big like other groups were coming out. Like BTS came out like debuted in 2013, and EXO was pretty big. GOT7 had also just debuted. VIX was pretty big. BAP, B1A4, which was also like doing pretty good at the time. But my favorite groups, I think, since then have probably just stuck around the longest have been like I just said, like BTS, EXO, VIX, Big Bang, 17 when they debuted, NCT have come along, Monsta X, and I think that's like the main big ones are those. As you can see, predominantly boy groups. Um,
Makes
because
sense.
I
Makes
really
sense.
liked 21, but then they disbanded. I liked Sistar for a while as well. FX. Um, what is 4 Minute was also pretty big, but I didn't really get into them as much because everyone seemed to disband. Like by the time like NCT and like all these other groups were debuting, a lot of the groups that I was in love with from 2014 were all kind of leaving, which was also very heartbreaking. Like people going into the military and the whole Big Bang scandal, and everything was just kind of falling apart, which was weird. But yeah, I haven't really been able to get into a lot of new groups since then. I like a lot of solo artists as well. Oh, I forgot like the Rose, obviously, because I'm related to Wolf. Like obviously, I have to like the Rose, Wonho, and all his other all his other things.
There's other
Um,
things. You mean
yeah,
the muscles on top of muscles? Those are things, right?
those are very very important things. And yeah, I mean Dean, Hugo, I like a lot of stuff, but those are like my main big groups, I guess.
So you're stuck in the mid 2010s. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of perfect because Gen 2 OG. That's I have a very nebulous history with K-pop where I started in 2011, I would say, and then on and off up until like 2018. So like my friends listened to all the Gen 2 K-pop. I know them adjacently to K-pop to anime because they'd always be played at anime conventions, but I never like dug into K-pop just because I think still at that time it was quite difficult to be as exposed as we are today, right?
Yeah.
You named a lot of amazing artists. Let's circle in on the Rose and specifically your brother and Wolf. And the Rose is a group that has music that's very in your feelings. Just it makes you feel a certain kind of way. And with all the emotions that music can evoke out of someone, how do you feel like that connection between the Rose and your brother have helped strengthen your relationship over time?
I don't know if he's admitted this, but oh, I'm pretty sure because I watched the episode. But I played K-pop through the walls for years, and then he eventually came around to it. And one of the groups that he actually did like that I well three like he would tolerate BTS. He liked Dean and he liked The Rose. So those were like kind of the three that he tolerated me playing in the car without like complaining about it. Um, and it's interesting that he made such a big connection with the Rose because I don't remember like specifically sitting him down and being like, listen to this group. But I really liked the Rose, and I personally connected a lot with their music when they first started releasing music, when they first debuted. I don't remember what year right now. Um, but I think me and my brother are very alike, and I think that our music taste is very alike. And the songs that they release, I feel like for him and for me are a reflection of the things that we can't say or don't like to express because we talk now more obviously, but I'm not really a person who um wants to or can talk about all her feelings all the time. So I feel like listening to the Rose is very, what's the word, like not therapeutic, but it makes sense. Like when I listen to their music, it's comforting to know that like other people can like feel the same thing that I'm feeling, even though it is about love sometimes, and sometimes that's not how you're feeling, but it's like the way that it sounds and some of the lyrics, and I think we connect that way. I think I don't know. We haven't talked about it, but yeah, the words unspoken, I guess.
What song from the Rose would you say best describes that type of emotional connection you have with your brother?
Ooh, um, I love you. I like that song. I think that's that one or She's in the Rain. I used to listen to She's in the Rain like every day. I think the feeling that I get when I listen to that song is very like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like I picture like you're standing in the rain and you're kind of sad about it, but at the same time it's like this had to happen and you have to move on now. It's very hard explaining to people how I feel about songs, especially K-pop, because again, that's what was my biggest issue is like, trying to justify to people why I listen to something I can't understand. But sometimes the way that it sounds makes me feel things. Like it could be a super happy song, but it could still make me sad, depending on how it sounds to me. And I feel like me and my brother uh, are similar in that respect, where we will listen to something and it'll make us feel a certain way. And those two songs, like we listen to a lot together. So I associate him a lot to those two.
Do you have any attached
And the
memories to "I Love You" or "She's in the Rain" that help kind of evoke that emotion that you get every time you listen to those songs?
um, I don't know if I have a particular like a memory, but um, the rain specifically for me is like it rains a lot here now because I'm in Europe. I'm no longer on a sunny island, but when it rained on the island, it was like happy because it doesn't rain often. So when it rains, everyone's like happy because we get to sit inside in the dark and like watch the rain fall. And now when it rains here, it's like all the time. So you miss the sun, if that makes sense. So it's become this like I'm in the rain all the time, and my brother's on the other side of the world, not in the rain. So when it rains there, I feel like it's a happy feeling, but when it rains here, it's kind of a sad feeling because then I think of home. And for him, it's the opposite because then he thinks of me because I'm in the rain all the time. So it's like kind of like that, I feel.
It's a very
I don't really have
powerful.
a.
Yeah, no, that's a really powerful sentiment. It's an image that I can picture in my head as far as being connected, being worlds away, right? You and your brother being apart, but a moment between weather, connecting in that sense and kind of that memory of it, and specifically the song, right? She's in the rain, and what the setting does to kind of pull that out of both of you. So, no, that's a really meaningful story, and thing that you've connected with, and I appreciate that you shared that with me. Yeah, forming connections through K-pop is, I feel like it's the uniqueness of what K-pop is as a medium, right? Where I always make this comparison with Western music, where it's slightly detached, where we do have fandoms with our artists, but we don't see the journey the same way. And I feel like people who listen to K-pop attach their personal stories with the kinds of music they listen to, because we have that kind of access to the artist and their stories. SojuTalk has been a place, a hub for all of these stories and all of these histories, these personal histories that we've met across the internet. So I'd like to ask you, how did you find the podcast, and how did you find the Discord?
Well, both of them are my brother. He was like, "Hey," it was like I think around the time that he started to really get into K-pop, and he was like, "Hey, you should listen to this podcast. I think you'd like it. They talk about K-pop." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I watched some episodes, and then later, I think 2 days later or something, he was like, "Hey, do you want to maybe join us in watching a movie on this Discord server?" And I had no idea what Discord was or what a I knew what Discord was, but I didn't know what a server was. And I was like, "Oh, like, are you sure? Is it okay if I join your friends?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we're gonna watch, like, I don't remember what we were watching, like maybe a Studio Ghibli movie or something." Because he knew I wanted to watch it, but he also wanted to watch it with you guys. So he was like, "Yeah, you should just come join." And I was already watching the podcast at the time, so he was like, "It's fine." So he just that was it. He came over to my laptop, added me, and then he was like, "Okay, now you click here to join voice channel, and then you just talk." And he would go back and forth from his room to my room all the time because I had no idea what I was doing, and I kept like accidentally muting myself or something. And now I've gotten pretty okay at it, but yeah.
Now you're a pro, as opposed to the boomer that were a few years ago, or just like fumbling every single channel, jumping into channels, and then unmuting yourself middle of the movie. Got it. No, it's a beautiful thing that technology and the internet can connect people in this kind of way. I've had Discord for a minute, but I didn't realize its full capacity until I joined Soju Talk. I think that was in 2019. So yeah, I had Discord for a few years, but I just didn't really like understand or use it the way that it's been used today. I also think the pandemic has heightened that a lot for people. Because this is the one place that people have gone to find social connection and friendships and relationships during a time where everyone's been so physically isolated, right? So you did talk about being thrown into the community right away. What was the appeal of the community that let you decide to open up and be more involved?
Um, Well, it was a lot at first because it was like it wasn't completely new to me because I've been in the K-pop community for a while, so I was on Stan Twitter and like Tumblr and stuff like that. So I had made some online acquaintances before, but those never lasted because like especially on Twitter at the time, you make group chats and like you are in these chats with people, but they get deleted pretty often because people become inactive and stuff. So going into Discord and going into the server, I thought that that's what would happen. Like it would just, become very inactive and everyone would eventually leave. So I didn't really want to get invested at first because I was like, okay, these people are nice to me now, but it probably won't last, which sounds really depressing. But that was my experience at the time with online friends, really. Um, so my brother spoke so highly of it, and he was like, "Yeah, you should join. Like everyone's super nice." And I joined the first few times, and everyone really was really nice, and people were very enthusiastic to ask about where I was from, what I liked, the groups that I liked, and it was nice talking to people who had similar interests and who liked similar groups as me, and um, who were excited. And especially during the pandemic, I think I really needed that, to like have that for a while of just being able to show up and randomly watch something, or just talk, or like the day I just had a random like 4 hour call with Maul and my brother, and he just explained the entirety of Luna and all of the fucking concepts to me, and he sat me down and he was like, "You will know Luna," and I was like, "Okay." um and those are like memories that I hold dear to my heart when I look back at the pandemic, and um like crazy moments that I didn't think I would have on a Discord server of all places.
No, that does sound very in line. It checks out that you would hop on a call with Mal and eventually get the entirety of all the Luniverse. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that you get around here. It's just it's a Soju talk. It seems like a Soju talk thing to happen. Did you have any other highlights from certain people or interactions you've had over the server, on the server over the years?
Um, I think for me, and I think my brother spoke about this as well, at some point during the pandemic, I kind of fell off the server for a while. I was on and off. Like I would come in and kind of exist, and then I would disappear again for a few months. And with moving to a new country and starting uni, and being in a new time zone, especially, I didn't really get to join VC that much because, unlike now, where Max is literally always in VC, there weren't a lot of people in Europe who were like very active at the time, and I was a person who slept pretty early, so um, that was a bit sad for me because it's like I wanted to, but I really couldn't because the time difference was so big. Um, so now that I'm kind of not dead anymore, I have some really fun memories with a lot of people on the server. Really, um, like me and Max are pretty close, and me and Zandi, and me and Mina always have a good time, and Bagel and Shin. Like I talk to you as well, Doug. Like my brother occasionally pops in, calls Maul a bitch, and then they fight for a little bit. Um, but I've had some really fun times. Like I remember when me and Nuna, my brother, and I think some other people watched the like all the BTS shows at some point during the pandemic when that came out. Like I think I don't know if it was the movie or something, but we all like came at a specific hour and we all sat down and watched the live stream and we all yelled together and everyone was singing out of sync. Um, or the days that we watched a few Studio Ghibli movies, or when we played Jackbox. Those were really fun days. I wish we should do more of those. I miss those, like playing video, like Jackbox and what's that other game? Not Among Us, but that Alien game on Jackbox. That one was really fun.
Yeah, the one's similar to Among Us, but it's in like one room and it's more of a word, a word, a word voice like version of Mafia. Yeah, I played that one. Um, yeah, you've named a lot of people, a lot of amazing server members, community members on Soju Talk. But now we've got to go into some stuff. We got to go into the things. We got to go into the shit. You know. All right. So Sophie, you've had a long history here at Soju Talk. You've also had a
Ooh.
few sagas. I would call them Soapie
Oh.
Sagas. The K drama that was. I think it started with your relationship. I would say it's a nice way to put it with Bagel. Please take us through it and what eventually occurred and resulted from your failed attempt at a marriage.
Well, to be completely honest, I blocked out that trauma. I don't really remember what what happened. I remember us joking about it, and then he had sent a certificate, and I was like, "Oh my god, did we just get married without my consent?" And then before I knew it, it was like a week, and I was already filing for divorce because obviously I don't remember when I had agreed to marry Bagel. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe I was having a manic episode. I don't really know. I did hire Mal as my divorce attorney, obviously, and we managed to get me a divorce. And me and Bagel we're still friends. Like everything's fine. But yeah, that was a weird period in my life. I don't remember how it started, but failed marriage one. Don't plan on doing that again. Hopefully.
It was your blackout period of your early 20 days when when everyone turns 21 and then they go party every night, even on a weeknight. They black out, but then they still make it to class or work the next day. I have totally never stayed up the entire night after coming to a club and then going to work the next morning. Totally have never done
No,
that.
that's
Never.
so irresponsible. We
I've
would never do
never
that.
been up for 50 hours in a row. Never. But you said you'd never do that again. And yet, I think we've come
Oh,
to a modern canon, Zondi.
wow. Okay, I
Um,
take that back. I would marry Zondi. I take that back.
oh, what about Zondi is a different situation than it was with Bagel.
Um, well, first of all, he actually asked me if I wanted to get married. And it's a joke, right? But you know when you joke about something for too
This is not a
long,
joke. This is real life. Please elaborate.
this is
Go on.
we've been discussing. I think I'm gonna eventually go fly to the UK. I don't think it's gonna happen this year anymore. But I think next year for sure I'm gonna go to London, and Max has offered to officiate the wedding. So we might get married in London in January. Not sure yet. We might have to send invitations, although I don't know if you guys will be able to make it. Otherwise, we'll live stream it.
Oh, that's
Um,
perfect. That is
and you can
exactly
all join.
what a Discord wedding should be.
But yeah, I really love Zandi. I hope he's probably in Scotland right now, so I hope that he's having a good time and he gets home soon because I miss him in VC.
You don't have to qualify that. You could have just
I
said,
know.
"I hope he gets home soon. I miss him." You simp. You're such a simp.
No, no.
Um, in all seriousness, I think these relationships and this type of interaction is so joyful to see. Just because, again, like the internet is such a funky place sometimes. You started on Stan Twitter and you said it's impersonal in a lot of ways, but also impermanent, right? Like you open the group chat and it disappears just because people are inactive. And because it's Twitter, it's not necessarily a communication platform. It's more about getting thoughts and getting small tidbits of news and information here and there. On Discord, there's something special to the fact that, it's all here. It's all kind of archived in a way where you can send out a message and you get immediate feedback. I think visually from a UX standpoint, sorry Warren, I know this is your territory, but seeing on the left hand side every single channel and then it lighting up, if you don't have to mute it, of course, but lighting up when a new chat pops up is just very psychologically appealing, right? There is that stimulation that we seek out, and the impulse control, right? To open it and then see it, and then if it's someone we recognize, someone we've had interactions with. I personally am in Chew, the Last FM channel, and the Bot channel. Again, with your best friends Zondi and Biffmilla, and Delmonic is there oftentimes,
A lot, yeah.
and I think
Before.
we just like hover around those two channels all the time. Um, I like to also point out that some quality of life things they've added to the server over the years is the VIP channel. I don't want to count them all because there's a lot, but it's individual groups, and I just think it's good for me because I could like throw some photos of Itzy in there, throw some photos of Blackpink and Rosie. We've got a Luna channel, so all the Luna lore will be there as opposed to like every single channel. Sorry, Mel, I get it. Yeah, it's a nice evolution of how the space has turned over the past few years, right? I think Mal and Wolf
Great.
described it as kind of the Wild West initially, where they had like one or two channels and they didn't really have a direction of where people were going and how people were talking about things. But now it's evolved in the place where, yes, granted, there are a lot of channels, but once you're accustomed to it, once you've acclimated, I think it does a lot to at least focus conversations and focus people's directions. So, yeah, and all of that to say it's helped strengthen, I think, relationships overall. I think a net positive in that sense, where people can interact and pick and choose what they want to engage with and who they want to interact with. With
Really interesting.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that as well recently. I was scrolling through the so like I don't I okay. I've been active again, I think, for like probably more than a month now, like pretty active, like almost every day. Um and I've realized that I'm very active when I'm like not doing like so well mentally, because I feel like people are so like I love my friends, but I don't see them every day. And it's nice to know that like I can come into the Discord and we can talk about some bullshit, or I can see, people posting about some stuff in different channels and kind of distract myself for a bit. Um but it's been nice, and it's been nice getting to know people better now that I'm I don't know, more active. It's been nice, and it's nice to see all the different channels, and like I check them daily and I see like people simping about different groups, and um people I it's weird to me, especially like you said before, like Twitter's such an like it's not a permanent place at all. Like nothing lasts for very long, and I think I struggled with the idea of this Discord lasting, which is probably why I wasn't as active, because I was expecting it to, like, I didn't think anybody cared if I was there or not. But I had people randomly, like, you would message me and just be like, "Hey, I hope you're doing well," and I would like cry because I'm like, "What the fuck? Why is like Crispy remembers me?"
I don't know what
Or
you
like,
mean. I've never done that before in my life. I don't reach out to people. I don't form
I'm
human
not.
connections. Who is that?
It was
Um,
like so out of nowhere, and Maul would occasionally just go, "Hey, you good?" and like just send me pictures of very pretty women. I think
okay.
Nuna reached out to me once. Like, even Salyu like messaged me once, and he was like, "Hey, happy birthday!" and I was like, "Oh my god." So to be back and to see that people are even more active than ever has been really nice, and like solidified my idea that these people aren't just gonna disappear, and that people kind of like me enough that they like care that I'm there. So yeah.
Well, take me through that internal wondering, right, where you have people in your life, real life people, whether that's people in your hometown, but now in school, in college, and interacting with interacting with the real world, meet space, and then virtual people. What are elements of the social interactions that are different, and what are elements of meeting people online versus in real life that you can distinctly say are more, unique in that sense? Not to say that one is better than the other, because I think there's a healthy balance of both is kind of a nice way to live. But which, in your opinion, how do you feel like they differ, and what are the things that you draw from to kind of help you get through the day between both?
um I mean, meeting people in person, um right, because when you join a Discord server, you know that the people in that server have a similar interest to you, because you're joining something about a topic, right? So in our case, it's like, the Soju Talk podcast and K-pop, and there's an anime channel, so some people in there like anime. You have people who like sports as well, because there's a sports channel, which again, it is like referring to all the new channels and stuff. So you know that there are people there who like things that you like, which is nice, because you're like, you don't have to really fish out to see if the person you're talking to enjoys similar things to you, as opposed to when you meet people in real life. Um, but meeting people in real life is also nice, because you get to vibe check them in real life, if that makes sense. Like, I'm a person who will usually tell immediately if I connect with you or not, and I can't really do that online. So sometimes I can't really tell whether I like someone or not, or whether they like me, because obviously I don't see them, like I don't see their faces, and we're not in person. so I can't vibe check you like I usually do with people. Um, but meeting people and feeling that connection is undefeated. Like the feeling that I had when I met my like closest friends in uni, like, and I had to meet a lot of them online because obviously I had an online first year of university. I would I would private message people on Zoom, and I'd say like some dumb shit like, "Hey, you look like you like Bad Bunny," and my friend was like, "Yeah, I do. How did you know?" And I'm like, "Oh, because you've told me you're from this country," and he was like, "Oh yeah." Or my other friend, I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, I said something stupid about his closet." And like that. And when they showed kind of interest in Zoom, I was like, hey, do you want to meet in person? And then when I met them in person and they matched my energy so well, it's so satisfying because you're like, wow, I found a person who, I found my person, like someone who gets me, and I don't have to force a conversation, or I don't have to force feeling comfortable around this person because you feel that connection. And I know that not everyone that I talk to understands what I mean because you don't always meet people who you connect with. Like, I don't know if that makes sense to you. Like, what I mean with like, you meet someone and then you feel like you've known them for such a long time because you can just talk and talk and talk, and it just goes so naturally.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what.
I do. I totally.
Mm.
Yeah, it's compatibility, right? I think we all have a innate sense of how to relate to people and what we relate to, right? For me, I also have a very like keen sense of the type of people meeting people in real life, right? And kind of filtering out or like understanding the type of people that they are upon like a handful of meetings. Perhaps the first meeting, perhaps over time. But again, it's very different than just kind of reading text online. As beautiful and great as it is to be on the SojuTalk server, I love just getting on a call and hearing another person's voice because there is an immediacy to how they respond with tone and intonation and timing and rhythm. All these things that do get lost in the sauce, as Doug would put it, on the server in text chat. Not to say that there isn't value in finding these specific channels and vibing with people that way, because I do think in that sense that's equally a nice filter, because I can go to like the anime channel and I know the type of people who will be there all the time, right? And it's really up to me to kind of parse through like who I vibe with depending on how they talk and and what they talk about. Similarly with Itzy, yes, I will bring up Bagel one more time. He and I have just bonded over crackhead energy over Itzy since the beginning of whatever the hell this history has been, and it has not changed. Yes, he will die on the hill of Mafia in the morning. I have since no, I don't reside on the hill. Perhaps I'm on a small little patch of grass at the bottom, just vibing. I like the song. I don't love the song. I don't go back to the song as often as he does. I don't have a hill to die on, but again, that's like an example of the type of friendships that you do get with community specified interest with the server. Um, yeah, no, God, this is like a therapy session for you. What, Sophie? You good? You good?
Me? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, let's loop in some K-pop into here, right? So we've got some new songs this week. The main show covered it. We've got 4 new songs. I will go through them quickly. We're not going to cover every single song in excruciating detail as we would any other show, but I'm going to throw it to you. Well, let's do this. Let's go through the songs first. So we've got Somi with XOXO. We got The Boys with Maverick. 2 a.m. with a double release. No Good and Goodbye, produced by JYP. Should Have Known, produced by Bang PD. And the music videos tell one full narrative. All right, so
yeah.
I'm gonna focus this conversation a bit. I'm gonna have you choose one song this week to talk about. Which of the 4 songs would you like to talk about?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I probably have. The thing is, I don't really listen to any of these artists. I mean, I'm familiar with 2 a.m. and 2 p.m., right? Because I'm a 2014 K-pop baby. But I haven't heard from them in a while, and I'm not really into the boys and Somi. So, I think my favorite song. was probably Should Have Known by 2 a.m. Out of the four, I really like that one. Um, but I don't really have much to say about it. I mean, I can talk about that one and then we'll see. So that one for me, because had watched both of them and I watched them in order. So I watched, I think it's No Good and Goodbye first, and then Should Have Known. Um, I didn't completely focus on the music videos because I like to listen to the song first and then I watch the music video. I don't know if that's how other people do it, but when it comes to songs like this, like more slower ballads and stuff, I like listening to the song first and then kind of looking at the music video. And I liked this one more out of the two because uh, immediately when it started, like a few seconds in, I got chills, which for me is a very good sign. I don't know how much of the song, like what exactly I liked so much about it, but I felt like it had much more emotion, and I felt again I felt like how I feel when you like listen to music, and I was looking at the lyrics and stuff, but it felt nice to listen to. And yeah, I like weirdly felt really emotional listening to it, especially the chorus and how it builds up and how he sings like louder as it continues. I thought that was really nice. Um, so yeah, I don't know how you feel about it.
I watched both music videos back to back. Again, with ballads, I have a very low bar where as long as there's a level of emotion that I can pull from it, then I will generally just be okay with it. The fact that it came with this music video story, I think I had a hard time differentiating the two songs because it was just one continuous thing for me. But going back into it and kind of hearing the way the vocals were arranged, I do agree that Should Have Known um, probably is the better song. Again, I'm not like a super like music connoisseur or like expert, but there are levels to the way that the song kind of plays with the emotions and plays with the story. Because me, I'm very visual, so I'm watching the music video, I'm pairing it to see how it plays out. Even though there weren't subtitles, I can still at least
Kind of grasp.
yeah kind of grasp and like pull through kind of what the lyrics are intending to say, even if I'm not understanding what they're saying, right? And also
Mhm.
like what's visually paired with the music video. Well, let me just ask you like an overall thing. So you listen to the songs separately. How did that experience change once you got into the two music videos?
Um, okay. I'm not a very big ballad person. When I that which is why I probably didn't like the watch the music video too. It didn't do much for me because I'm Wolf's sister, which means I tend to gravitate towards sadder things. So the first music video was very happy, like we're in love, that kind of stuff, and I was like, okay, whatever, like that's nice. But I thought the second music video encaptured like the energy of the song better as opposed to the first one. I thought No Good and Goodbye wasn't very memorable to me, and I didn't think that the song changed at all throughout the entirety of it. Like the chorus and it was kind of one tone to me. And if it's gonna be happy, I kind of get it. But then when you listen to Should Have Known, like the change between like the beginning and then the chorus, and then it kind of goes back down again, and then the chorus hits again. There's like changes to it, which the music video was also kind of like that, where it was like you're going up and down and up and down. So I thought I liked the second one better. Not like it's like a one is over the other, but I didn't think the music video, the first one, was as memorable. Like it kind of transitioned into the second one, but the second one had a better, like it kind of brought it home, if that makes sense. Like it
Yeah,
kind of saved it.
yeah. There's different layering to it once you're able to kind of see the entire picture for what it is, right? The main show did mention that the music video does start with the train scene and it unfolds backwards in a way where you see the highlights of the relationship. You see all the good times in No Good and Goodbye, and then it's not until you get to the end and then you get into Should Have Known that, oh no, it's about two people separating, and then what does that mean about like love being lost over time, and making the
Hmm.
decision point of like two tickets, and moving away or having different aligned objectives within a relationship, and then narratively coming back together at the train station. So kind of a cyclical storytelling here. I am the storytelling person when I watch these things. Like I try to be involved in the music, but as long as the music is just like pretty good, then I kind of get lost in the
Ah,
sauce. Yeah, I've said that
I'm the
twice today.
opposite. No,
Nice.
but it's like it makes sense. I'm the opposite where like I don't really remember music videos that often because I focus on how the song makes me feel, which is probably not the best thing sometimes. But when it comes to songs like this, I feel like that works. It confuses me because I'm the opposite of you.
Yeah.
I listen to the music and don't focus on the music video, and then you focus on the music video, and the music's kind of a background thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's what you how you experience it shouldn't be diminished. I would say that you at least give that extra insight that I missed because again, like I need to listen to a song a lot for me to like pull a lot of the elements that you mentioned, with the way that the vocals go up and down and kind of change with should have known. So yeah. Well, that was our talk for Soju Talk Music this week. You know, we're keeping things light today. It's Soapie's therapy session today, so we're just in our fields in this fall season. All right, Soapie, we're moving into closing thoughts. So I've got a couple things for you to kind of wrap things up. You know, college is a thing. College life. Can you give us a life update on how you've been this year with being back? Well, I guess well, give us the timeline of how things played out during the pandemic, right? Because I know you started college during the pandemic, and then things changed, but you started the school year fully there in the Netherlands. What's it been like throughout this time?
Uh, well, I mean, I don't think any of us expected it to go the way in which it did. I was coming to the Netherlands in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And in the summer, and the pandemic had been raging for like a few months since like March, and we thought, okay, it's gonna, get better, and yeah, we were like, I'm not gonna not go to college because that's, what was the plan, I suppose. So we got here, and it wasn't really getting any better, and eventually my family left, and I was left here alone in a new country across the ocean. um, so it was hard at first. It was kind of exciting at first because you're like, okay, new country, like university starting, and then we found out that it was going to be entirely online for like a few months at least, and we all thought, oh, okay, like it'll be a few months and then it'll get better, and then a few months became the entire year. So that I don't think was what anybody expected. Um, for Christmas, I wasn't supposed to go home, but my family felt bad. They were like, you're gonna be the Netherlands went into another lockdown in December right before I left, or like I left and then they went into a lockdown. So my family was like, we're gonna bring you home so you can at least be home for Christmas and not spend it alone in a lockdown country. So I'm really grateful that I got to do that because as soon as I arrived in Aruba, the Netherlands, when I locked down, everything was closed. No restaurants, no nothing. There was a curfew. Like my friends who had stayed here were not doing well mentally at all. It was everybody's first winter too, so it was cold, it was depressing, everything was closed. So I think if I would have stayed for Christmas, I would not have been okay at all. Um, I mean, stayed in the Netherlands because I went back home. And then I ended up staying home for 3 months, which was not the plan at all. But every time I was supposed to go back, I was like, ooh, I don't want to. So I kept prolonging it, and then I went back in. And it was hard. It was hard being back home for that long and kind of getting used to being around my family again, and then having to leave and go back to this like, new life that wasn't really a new life because everything was. Oh, sounds so depressing, but it kind of was. It was a depressing year. And I don't think a lot of people talk about it because people just expect you to be like okay in college because it's like, college like is the best years of your life, and it's like not when you start your first year in a fucking pandemic. Can I swear? I don't know if I can swear, but
We're good.
um
We're good.
okay. So I got back and I randomly met this other islander in my hallway of my building, and we got super close, and he started dragging me to parties and to other events, and I started being very irresponsible, but it made me feel things again because everything was still fucked, and people weren't vibing. Like no one was no one was vibing, but I'm grateful to him that even though we went to really shitty parties and we listened to really shitty music, we had a good time, and we have like funny, stupid college stories to kind of make up for the shitty first year that none of us expected to have. Um, it was really stressful finding housing. Oh my god, that was like a whole other thing. I went back. I had to come back because I had to move, because everybody had to move after a year in my building because I was in student housing. So that was a stressful few months as well trying to find housing, but I did. I managed to find a house with my best friend, and we found another roommate, and we're very happy in our new house. But I think it's hard being an adult and kind of being thrown into being an adult in a pandemic on top of that. And then for me, especially thrown into being an adult in a whole new continent, and then having no manual at all on like how to do any of this, and like my family not being able to help me because they also don't know. Like they can try, but it's like, it's a whole new thing. So yeah, it's a bit fucking hard. I've
You've
had amazing memories though, and I've made amazing friends, but yeah.
you've had to grow up a lot over the past year and a half. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But all of it, I think will do a lot to serve you as a person. In your personal development, emotional development, intellectual development, and I can say this confidently. You, how should well, you socialize a lot. You socialize with a lot more strength than the weight of all of this seems to be, right? Where yeah, it's all hard. There's no manual to being an adult, to doing all of this during a pandemic, but you do it in stride. I think you make it look in a way where it doesn't completely debilitate your ability to want to look for the best in every situation. I think what you said about going out, making mistakes, regrettable decisions.
No, there
Um,
were. I don't have any like. I don't have any regrets like that. I just have very like stories that you okay, so when you go to college, right, as someone who's from a very small island in the middle of nowhere, you think of movies, and when I think of movies, I think of American movies, right? And you think of making bad decisions and running from the cops and being drunk in a park and stuff like that. And for my first few months that just wasn't a possibility, and I'm not saying like, oh, that's what you need to do in college for it to be memorable, but I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to do things that I thought would like kind of make up for the months that I had missed, because the first year is supposed to be like your party year or whatever. And I didn't really get that. So I was being a bit irresponsible and not really following COVID regulations at the time, but only mostly in my building. So it was like I only really saw people in my building, and I didn't get it and nobody got it for some godforsaken reason, because I think we were seeing like the same people over and over again, and since nobody was seeing really anybody else, it was just kind of like weirdly okay. I don't condone this at all, by the way. Please don't come for me, Dutch government. Um, but like I have fun stories now that like my brother will randomly bring up to like his friends, like, oh yeah, she ran from the cops or something like that, and I'm like, yeah, haha. And it's like, funny after. Like I have stories of like nights that I'm like, what the fuck? That sounds like something that would happen in a movie. And you just kind of have to make the best out of it, and like you said, like I really try to look at the positive side of everything, and I really did try to do that throughout the entirety of my first year. Going back home, that was like a highlight. I mean, maybe it's not the ideal going back home for that long, but I enjoyed it. I got to save money, and when I got back, I could buy like new furniture with the money I had saved up, and new clothes and stuff like that. So I try and make the best out of it, which I'm glad you picked up on, because I try. That's the that's the only thing you can really do, right? Is try.
it's a contained chaos are the kind of memories that you were seeking, where you want that excitement of being able to make mistakes and kind of doing things that are questionable as far as what older people would look at, but it is those mistakes that help us grow the most, right? In a lot of ways, whether that's teaching us what not to do in the future, or finding ways to problem solve. I think is the most academic way I can put that. All right, well, Soapie, that is Soju sessions after hours. I'm sure you have a ton of stories that we can get into, but again, Soju sessions after hours. Let's plan for that. All right, let's schedule that. You and me.
Good.
All right. Well, two final things before we head out. You're a big nerd. You're a weeb. You like fantasy and science fiction things. What is I guess what property, science fiction, fantasy, anime, comic books, what property do you like the most right now?
What do you mean property? Like which ones do I like the most currently?
Yeah, like what are you most interested in right now? What titles?
Well, I haven't been able to watch anime in quite a while because of school and life's a bit overwhelming. But the last few ones that I watched that I really liked were like Jujutsu Kaisen, obviously, because my character is Itadori from Jujutsu Kaisen, which I highly recommend. I thought it was really good. I watched the new Demon Slayer movie, which was also pretty good. I'm very excited for the new Witcher season because I rewatched season one. Or I was rewatching season one with Max until he decided that he would rather play New World over watching The Witcher with me, which I still I'm upset. I'm kidding. I'm not. Me and my brother rewatched Lord of the Rings again recently as well. But new things. I don't think I've been getting I my roommate actually shipped in books from back home, so I finally got my manga collection like behind me in my bookshelf, so I've kind of been rereading those. I have a few Tokyo Ghoul volumes and some Naruto volumes. I have like Noragami and Attack on Titan, so I've just kind of been rereading those as well. And I've been trying to get into Chainsaw Man, the manga, because I've heard very good things about it, and I'm pretty sure I saw someone talk about it in the anime channel because it is getting an anime adaptation. Um, but yeah, I've been kind of reminiscing on older things. I know that like there's a new Venom movie, which I've heard is kind of bad, but I want to go watch it because I love Venom as a character, or like Eddie. I think it's very funny. Um, uh, there's another Marvel movie coming out as well, like Spider-Man and stuff. So I'm looking forward to those. The Eternals, right? The DC show is also coming out, or is they just premiered it or something? So we'll see.
You said a lot of old things. You said a lot of new things. I think you are just a big nerd for everything. Let's be real. I think
Yeah.
you are very it's admirable. It's something I aspire to. I wish I was more organized so I could, systematically watch and read everything that I wanted to, but I get distracted really easily. So if I'm not like hyper invested or focused in the moment, I will have a problem finishing something. But once I do get involved and invested, I am like 100% and in. But yeah, that's the
I
thing.
relate. I think all of these are literally hyperfixations that I had for a period of time, and that's the only reason that I finished any of them. Because right now, for example, I go through anime and K-pop slumps where I don't really keep up. Like I'm still in my K-pop slump where like I'll occasionally listen to something or someone will recommend something to me and I'm like, okay, cool, and I'll watch it. Same with anime, I'll go through like a slump of like, oh, I haven't watched anything in a few months, and then I'll hyperfixate again on like watching something and finishing it. So I feel like it comes in waves.
Nice. Um, for me, I'm gonna do a 2 minute monologue and then I will throw it to you. I think Dune is
Ooh.
one of the most brilliant pieces of art ever created. The movie by Denis Villeneuve. I've been a fan of his since
Mhm.
2014. So I watched Sicario. I think when it first came out in 2015. He had a couple movies before that. He had Prisoner, and there was another one where Jake Gyllenhaal plays a twin of himself. So I follow his career for this almost this entire half decade. So much so, I introduced my family to Sicario. They've watched it like 10 times. Um, I when people mention that in the 2010s there weren't any good movies, I always point them to: Have you seen Arrival? Have you
Ooh.
seen how a science fiction storytelling, specifically in cinema, is accentuated through editing solely through that medium? That you could not tell that story any other way, all in a very budget friendly, if you really look at it, because they do things only in very specific sets and limited locations, but tell such a complex story of time through language that I don't think me personally have ever experienced before in the past. Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner fans have said, like, what was the point of this movie? Having not seen it, I've had many bar conversations explaining to them that yes, it's a continuation of this idea of what does it mean to be a human, with the added complexity of what does it mean to be a god, with Jared Leto's character, and the fact that at the end of the movie he has no consequences. So is he truly acting in the sense of being a god? All the while unraveling what that means for Ryan Gosling's character, finding humanity and finding a soul. All this to say, Dune for me is the start of his magnum opus, as far as being his crescendo of filmmaking, whether that's genre films, science fiction, or anything else. Just because I do think there are a lot of elements to this movie that are very accessible, whether that's the action, the family dynamic, the political machinations, and the complexities behind that. But I do think that there are a lot of fantasy storytelling elements that are strictly for us nerds. We have witches. We have the Bene Gesserit. I come at
Yeah.
I come at this. So I've read the book, the first book, just the first book. For me, I was very much well placed in who the characters were and the progression of the story. So for me, I could absorb all that. People said it's dense. I was okay. I understand if other people weren't, but all of those things give a scope and scale and texture to the way he films and shoots the story. And I think he does so much with this idea of a lived-in universe where you see the rusted vehicles, the old monuments, the desert, right? Where it does feel very tactically something we can live in, but again with the fantasy elements. And for me, I always compare these long epics with, of course, Lord of the Rings, like you mentioned. And yes, this is part one of a greater story, and there's more to come, and it's beautiful, and I love it. I love this movie. Sophie,
I'm
what do you
so
think?
happy you brought up Dune because how did that slip my mind to not talk about Dune? I have watched it 3 times in IMAX. I spent all that money to watch it 3 times because I think it's that worth it to watch it 3 times on the big screen with blaring speakers because the and I my dumb brain when I watched I forgot that Dennis had directed this movie for some reason. I don't know why. And when I left the movie, I looked over at my friend and I was like, I feel the same way that I felt when I watched Blade Runner 2049 for the first time. And she was like, yeah, duh, because it's the same director. And I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Um, I cannot be hyped enough about Dune. I think, like you said, like one of the things that I enjoyed the most about it is how lived in the world was, and he does so well creating these worlds that don't feel like they are fantasy, but they don't feel that way. Like they're lived in, and the detail that he puts into every scene, and editing and the coloring and everything makes it seem so like this could exist outside of what we outside of our like realm, I guess you could say, which is
It's a future we have yet to
insane.
know. Yeah.
And it's so hard to do that when, like, for example, Dune is obviously in a dune. It's in like sand. It's hard to create to make that feel like its own planet because everybody kind of knows what a desert is, right? So you think people would just be like, oh, Sahara, but I don't think once did that cross my mind to compare any of that to something we know in our world because you had created this world so perfectly that I was so fully convinced and immersed in the fact that this was a whole other planet and that the sand that I'm looking at is not the sand that we know, which I was just so immersed the entirety of the movie. I don't think I could speak after for like a while because I was just processing everything, and I had to go a second time. And I hadn't read the book, so for me, I didn't think it was dense at all. I think it presented all the information that it needed to for the first half. I'm not like confused. I think watching it a second time even helped more with the flashbacks, especially when we get those or like I guess you could not really flashbacks, but more like uh
Visions.
visions in the end, and how that like solidified it watching a second time what I thought it was. I don't know if like we're not gonna spoil anything, but I was sitting there and I was like, oh, it makes sense. It makes sense. I'm like, okay. And now I'm just like, I just I loved it so much. Like comparing it to 20 Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think Dennis, I can never pronounce his last name, Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Yeah, it's French, I believe.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best directors we have now in this day and age. Like the movies like Arrival, Blade Runner, Sicario, like you said, Prisoners, which is the one I think with what's his name, Ryan? No,
Prisoners is with Wolverine.
yeah, and the other one, um, what is his name? The one that plays
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Donnie Darko, Jake Gyllenhaal, yeah,
Yeah.
with him. Those are all excellent movies. And Blade Runner, I need to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it in a very long time. I have notes in one of my really old journals about how this movie made me feel because I was so like I was scribbling down the entire time. I was like, oh my god, like how am I supposed to process all of this? And I felt so like I've said with how I listen to music, right? Like I listen to music and it makes me feel a certain way. And with me, movies, shows, books, like my nerdy, geeky stuff helps me export myself into another dimension, I guess, which is like a whole geek experience. Um, and the way that Dune and Blade Runner 2049 made me feel was similar, where I was completely immersed and like I left this planet for a little bit. And sometimes you need that. And yeah.
Well said. Well said. I think, to kind of tie it all together, Denis Villeneuve is a filmmaker who grew up very similar to us, where he had interest in science fiction. Granted, yes, the mediums were different back then. Books and kind of the pop culture, the pop comic books, the comic strips, I believe, and what is it? Flash Gordon, some of his inspirations, I'm sure, where you had these serialized kind of cult science fiction properties, but with without the same attention and polish that he's bringing to movies now and filmmaking, just because we're at the point of technology where he can do it, and he has a vision for how he wants to execute things, and I think we are all better for it, that we are experiencing his genius at work, and that's why I am saying it's the start of his magnum opus. I don't know how many movies there are going to be. I know there's going to be a part two. There could very well be 5 movies, just because it's a long story. I will take them
It
all.
could get canceled. Which I
Yeah,
really hope it doesn't. But
yeah. I will take
there
them
are a
all.
lot of
Yeah.
take anything. I'll take as much as they want to make.
Mhm.
I'm very excited. Very, very, very excited.
Yeah. And it does also just tie into like how we get invested in everything, right? And how we connect with people. I think ultimately we do want to find connections. We do want to find someone to communicate with who share, similar interests to us, but then also to learn and grow from that type of interaction and socialization. And it all just brings me to the end of this amazing conversation, that I feel like I've grown with you and learned about the world and expanded how I see things. And I'm gonna give the last meaningful thought to you, Soapie. Do you have anything for the audience? Do you have any hopes and dreams or aspirations moving forward?
Um, Damn. Uh, I think especially right now, um, it might sound a bit depressing because I know a lot of people are going through it right now, but um, seek happiness, like in the little things. And that might sound really fucking stupid, but me walking home today to film this podcast, the sun was hitting the leaves in a very specific way, and I love that. And I stop and take pictures of everything, but I know that my pictures aren't like really that good, but they're like, little diary entries for myself. So like find joy in the little things, even if a day might be really, really shitty or you're feeling really shitty. There's always like try and find at least one good thing about that day, and then slowly you'll start to realize that there are multiple good things in that day. And I say that even though it doesn't always end up being that way. Um, but yeah, like maybe you ate something that you really enjoyed that day, or your sheets felt extra comfy that morning when you woke up or when you went to sleep. Um, and especially now that it's getting colder for the people who are in hemispheres in which there's winter, call family. I don't. I Not everybody gets along with family. Maybe call friends or your random like neighbor that you had a few years ago, and seek comfort in other people. Because although we have obviously our Discord and we have each other, maybe other people are going through it too that can use a shoulder or someone to talk to. So yeah,
Yeah, take a second to you know reflect on the beauty of the present moment. I think is a great sentiment that you're expressing to everyone. All right, Sophie. Well, thank you so much for this very therapeutic conversation about life and all the little things. Sophie, you've been excellent. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me
of
and for being
course.
such a good host.
No, 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 no. Couldn't have done it without you. All right. Well, let's sign out. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Soju Sessions on the SojuTalk Nation podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify or your preferred podcast platform, and continue the conversation on the SojuTalk K-pop podcast Discord. For Soapie, this is Crispy, and this has been the Soju Sessions.